exploring upgrades and expansions to the town's playing fields. We'll have the details next on Millis After Dark. Hello, I'm Joyce Boyardi. Welcome to Millis After Dark. Millis residents will be soon asked to consider supporting a plan to fund upgrades and expansions to the town's playing fields. The plan is a result of months of study and town survey. The local fields committee has been working with consultant CDM Smith of Rhode Island to create a design concept. My first guest, Chuck Adelsberger, is an associate of that firm. Welcome, Chuck.
Thanks, Joyce. I appreciate you having me here tonight.
We're going to begin with the outreach of the community regarding field proposal. How did CDM Smith begin its work here? And how was the community engaged?
That's a great question. I think one of the things, first of all, at last town meeting in November, the town appropriated some money to move forward with an evaluation of the fields in town. And we were hired subsequent to that. And one of the things in talking to the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator's office is that they wanted to have a lot of community engagement. So we thought it was appropriate to have a lot of meetings with the different groups around town. We had a public meeting earlier, or actually late in March. And we got great response. And I think the one thing that I noticed about the town of Millis is that they had a great passion for their athletics and the recreation fields. A lot of them had different areas of interest, but it was important for us to get out there and speak with as many people as we could. And I think the town's done a great job in making the residents understand and know that the project's going on, and we've getting some excellent feedback from them.
As far as the residents that did attend these meetings, would you tell me what the average age was?
Most of them were department heads or people, adults, that were looking whether out for the best interest of their kids or coaches or officials in town that are looking to improve the facilities. And all different groups have been great. I think it's been very beneficial to us because we're coming in here learning about the facilities, and the town's been very open and provided us with a lot of great information. So it's been very encouraging to us.
After the feedback, what conditions would you say the town fields are, and what were some of the conclusions that you came up with or the committees came up with?
Sure, that's a great question, and I want to credit the town again. They had a field advisory committee prior to this one of 5 that had 9 members, including recreation committee members, people in the different user groups, and at-large town members. And they pulled together a lot of information for us on the condition of the fields. And obviously the town felt that it was necessary to move forward with the project because of the condition of the fields, and we're seeing why now as the project unfolds, is that the fields have been used a lot. And that's a positive thing, too, because the kids are using the field. You have a lot of people that are using the field, a lot of different groups in town, out of town, and the fields are showing some definite wear there. So I think it's, I credit the town for moving forward with this project.
There are some photos downstairs, aerial photos on the first floor that people could actually look at, and it shows the fields, it shows the walking trails. Can you give me an overview of the design concept?
Sure, and Charlie Aspinwall and Jim McKay, I thought it was a great idea for them to show those. Again, looking at the community engagement and letting people know what's going on, I thought it was a great idea on their part to put those figures out there. And what CDM Smith tried to do with those figures was to kind of give a general idea of what we want to do there. It's just concept now and nothing's definite. I want to make sure everybody understands that because we're still getting information from the community. We think it's important that we reflect on what we recommend as a reflection of what the community wants. So obviously all the fields have been used a lot. So we tried to give our best recommendations as to what to do with the fields and how it would be most appropriate to address all the needs of the town. So in general terms, we're looking at potentially a stadium type setting field at the high school, and then potentially at Clyde Brown putting in a synthetic turf field there so that both the schools and the community can use that at a greater rate. and then potentially putting some baseball fields up at the Cassidy property and new soccer fields up at Oak
Grove Farm.
Oak
Yeah.
Grove Farm, sure.
You mentioned the is it called artificial or astroturf, or are those the same? Is that one and the same?
Well, it used to be called AstroTurf, and that
So
now.
I'm dating myself.
Well, I was there too. I played on those. So, and the AstroTurf became like what they call synthetic or artificial turf fields, which is a little bit different. If you remember the old AstroTurf fields, it was basically a carpet over concrete, which wasn't very safe, and it actually hurt more than the natural turf. With the new synthetic turf fields, with the tremendous changes that have happened in the industry, they're a lot safer. They cost a little bit more. The capital cost up front is a little bit more
Than a regular
natural turf field. But the life cycle cost for those synthetic turf fields is lower in the end, because the cost per play on the field is lower, because you can play longer into the season, start earlier in the season, because you don't have to worry about snow on the fields. You can actually plow the artificial turf fields.
And it won't damage it?
There's special ways you have to do it, so you have to do it right. It can damage it if you don't do it properly, but that's where we're going to advise the town on how they should do that, should they decide to put a synthetic turf field in. But it's also safer for the kids, too, and I think that's important to bring up, because with a natural turf field, it tends to get compacted, and with the compaction, there's more of a likelihood of injuries like concussions or sprained knees, ankles, or
So
whatnot.
it's a little more forgiving, a little bit more bouncy.
Yeah. The material that's in it, it's sand and a rubber type mixture that provides the cushion for it, and it doesn't get compacted. It springs back. So.
And what about water? If there's a lot of water, will it flood like a regular field can if it's saturated too much, or
Sure.
is it designed so that the water will drain through it?
That's a great question, too, and that leads into the point of having more playtime on the fields, because on the natural turf field, you're going to have puddling. I played baseball a lot, or softball, and obviously you have to postpone games. Not that you'll have a synthetic turf baseball field, but even in a soccer field, if you have puddling, you're not going to be able to play. With the drainage systems on these new synthetic turf fields, is it tends to drain more quickly. You can play right after rain or during rain, and it won't bother you at all. The rainwater will go right down into the under drain system and then drain off.
So it's similar to a French drain?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, where you have drainage system underneath that will disperse the water more quickly as it goes through the turf.
Now, are you planning on doing the I'm going to call it Astro because of my age, the artificial turf on all the fields, or is it just strictly for the Clyde Brown field? And why or why not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that what we're seeing is that the reason that the fields are in the condition that they are right now is for overplay. And what you're having is that because of the condition of, say, the high school field, you have spillover from the high school onto the town park or Clyde Brown or even Oak Grove Farms. So with that additional play, you're getting wear on the field. So what we would probably recommend is at the high school, and most of the high schools in the area, all of them surrounding Millis, actually have synthetic turf field or artificial turf fields because of, they see the merits of, the long life cycle cost being more cost effective for the synthetic turf field. So we would recommend it at a stadium type setting at the high school, and then also at Clyde Brown, because you get more play and it's more forgiving. Obviously, it's less costly to maintain over time, and you won't have the issues you have now where there's the wear and tear in the fields with too much play.
What is the life expectancy of an artificial turf?
That's a good question as well. And another reason why they're good, what they're warranting the fields for is probably 8 years, but that's continuing to increase, and we're seeing that the fields will last for 10 to 12 years. They're only warranted for 8, but you should probably plan through that 8 to 10 year period to generate enough money to just replace the turf. So the good thing about that is that you're not going to do a total replacement of it. It'll just be the surface. So it'll be the carpet on the surface that you would replace every, say, 10 years or so.
Is that something that is a square footage cost? How is that calculated?
Normally they'd be running now, if you wanted, it'd probably be about, $600,000-700,000 for a standard size field. I don't know exactly what that calculates to in a square foot.
Oh, no, that's fine. So that's every 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
Now, how does that differ as far as the maintenance of a lawn or true turf?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think what we have is, and we presented at the public meetings, the life cycle costs and the cost per play, especially if you have lights on the field. What's great about it is that you're going to get more play, so that the cost of, and there is maintenance cost, but it pales in comparison to the natural turf fields with the fertilizer, weed control, watering. It just, that starts to add up. So over the life of, say, 8 to 10 years, you're going to see that it's a lot less costly to go the synthetic turf fields.
Well, what feedback have you heard now, say, on the proposal, if it's completed?
It hasn't been completed. We're still working. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting tomorrow night with the Field Advisory Committee, but just to let the public know, we have that last meeting. We're going to present our final report to the Field Advisory Committee and the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator later this month, and then we'll be at town meeting in May to talk a little bit more about what we're going to recommend. So.
Now, as far as the costs, will that be discussed again also tomorrow night, what the cost of the project is going to be, and is it going to be broken down by school, field, different locales?
At this point in time, we're serving at the direction of the Field Advisory Committee, and they've been extremely helpful. It's been a great couple of months meeting with them, and I wish I could tell you exactly what's going to be recommended, but they're going to probably provide some direction tomorrow. There's a couple of schools of thought that we present, a wide range of different improvements in varying degrees of need, so that you want to do this first and provide cost. But they may also, and it would be prudent to do so, they may decide that they want to do a little bit more study to fine-tune those costs and get direction from the town at spring to move forward with some preliminary design phase, say to do some survey and wetland stuff, and then make a more firm proposal to the town in November, which it would be prudent as well.
Sure. Now, is there anything else that you'd like to add to this conversation that you want people to know?
Sure. I have to credit the town, as we opened with. I think the town has done a great job with this project, really. Between the town administrator's office and the Board of Selectmen providing direction, and the Field Advisory Committee to kind of do the day-to-day thing. It's been a great process, and CDM Smith has really enjoyed working with the town of Millis.
Well, I'm delighted that you came. You've enlightened me.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to give the community a lot to review and think about. And thank you for your time and input.
Well, it's my pleasure, Joyce. I appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My next guest is going to be Chuck Grant, the athletic director of the Millis High School Middle School.
It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. The new proposal would move the school's baseball field to the current Little League field and would expand and upgrade a multi-purpose facility where soccer, football, and track events would be held. Mm-hmm. That's at the site of Welsh Field, I believe.
Correct.
How would that impact the future playing opportunities for your teams?
Well, it's going to give us some great fields. First of all, right now our baseball field is the smallest field in the league by a landslide. It's really way too short. It's called the Homer Dome. We've tried to increase the difficulty to hit a home run by putting up extra netting and telephone poles to make it a little more difficult to hit it out. So being able to play in a regulation size outfield would certainly even the playing field for both teams in our site. Being able to host track. Right now our track program is the largest program in our high school. It's 71 members on it. It's incredible because just 6 years ago we had 19. So you look at a school with 71 people in its track program and you don't have a track. The track would be a wonderful addition to our offerings, as well as a great resource for the community to come and enjoy. It's a nice way to bring the community in. Originally, we had talked about the possibility of the facility being on the other side of the school in front of Clyde Brown, purely for the reason that we wanted to make it inviting for the public to come in. We did not want to give off the impression that this is something the high school is looking to control. This is something that we're looking to share with everybody, because we certainly don't need it every day. So being able to have regulation track, regulation soccer, football, and a regulation-sized baseball field would really be a wonderful luxury to have.
Is there no track? Where are the kids running track now?
That's a great question. Where do they run them? I can tell you they run the staircases, they run the hallways, especially in the winter and the early spring. They run the parking lot. And there is a stone dust circle that goes around our football soccer field right now that's not quite a quarter mile, but they run on that. It's hard as a rock. It's not good for their shins. It's actually, there's a downward slope in the back corner because of all the rain that settles back there. But it's what we've had, and we've never complained, and we've been able to build a sizable track program without even having a track.
Well, I understand that roughly 300 children or kids use the town playing fields. How many students use the fields?
We have 441 roster spots. Now, some of those would include basketball, so you take 75 off of that number, and you're going to have about 390 kids using the fields in front of Clyde Brown, behind Clyde Brown, and over on the high school side.
So that's Millis middle school and high school students?
Correct.
There are
Right.
that many students?
Well, that many roster spots. So in terms of the overall students, between the two schools, you've got roughly 400 downstairs, 397 downstairs and about 420-something upstairs. Of that, you have about 73% of the students will play at least one sport.
Wow. I didn't realize that. We heard earlier about the artificial turf that would be used. I know some areas of the school already use that, that of some of the fields. What are your thoughts about using it as opposed to natural?
Well, the reason you would go, there's a few reasons you would go with artificial or synthetic. The biggest reason is if you don't have the field space to literally rotate the usage of your fields, then by putting synthetic turf on one field, you've essentially turned that into 3 fields, because now you can use it for practice and you can double the amount of time that you're on it. For instance, on our high school field right now, we're playing 75 games on that field in 60 days. It's a grass field. You can see after week 2 that the field's completely run down to dirt. We've replaced the center strip of sod the last 3 years in a row, and you just wear it right down. So going to synthetic is going to give you the ability to not only play games on it, but also practice on it. And you put the new lights on there, which will be much more cost efficient than the lights we have now that date back to 1973. And you're going to be able to practice to 9 o'clock at night and get everybody on that one field, or spread it out and have some of the teams still practicing over on Town Park while the others practice on the high school field, and get everybody out of practice earlier, which would then free the fields up earlier for the recreation to use and our youth sports to use.
And is that something that is in the proposal so that the townspeople will know that it's not just for the school, it's for recreation, it's for anyone who is in need of using it?
Exactly. That's one of the things that I want to make very clear to the town, is that this is something that we want to share with the community. We share Town Park right now. On Town Park, we have 180 soccer practices over 60 days. 6 teams, 30 practices a team. 180 practices on the same field. It's just, you can't do it, and we've shown that we can't do it. One of the big problems we have in this town, that's a wonderful problem to have, is you have a flourishing athletic program, an unbelievably quickly growing recreation program, and the youth sports have increased dramatically with the winning and the success that our high school program has enjoyed. The registration numbers are up in town overall, so you've got 3 programs all vying for the same spot of grass. And that grass is gone now, so we've got to make some adjustments that will afford us the ability to meet the demand, of the use demand of that, without taking away from the quality of the surface.
Do you feel that this improvement is going to keep Millis students in Millis versus going elsewhere?
Well, that's an interesting point. I can't say to you that I've heard people are leaving here because of our facilities. I can tell you that when I first came here in 2003, and saw the facilities that we had, my feeling was, in talking with the students, they, well, we need to get new this and we need to get new that. And my feeling right away was, well, why don't we show people we can win first? Why don't we show people our work ethic and commitment first? And then once we do that, that will draw the enthusiasm to the fact that, wow, these kids have been winning at this and they don't even have that. These kids have taken their track program and grown it 200, 300%, and they don't even have a track. So not, if you build it, they will come, but it was, we came, we worked hard, we proved ourselves that we could be successful, and now we ask, can we please try to get some facilities in here that really are commensurate with the ones that we're going up against in other towns, nearby towns.
What kind of feedback have you gotten in regards to this proposal?
The excitement is really people. It's almost too good to be true that we're this close to it.
And who are you getting the feedback from?
The kids all the time will come in. Do you think we'll have it by the time I graduate? You're lucky. It'll be done by the time you graduate, but not by the time I graduate. The parents will come in. Is this really? Is this real? And I try to say to them, it's as real as you want to push it forward. This is your town. This is your facility. This is your community. I work here. I'm so excited for the potential of having this facility in this town, because this town is poised and ready to not only enjoy a facility like this, but be able to utilize it in other ways that would generate revenue, that would handle the maintenance costs, that would be able to do all kinds of other things around the concession stands and things like that. This town deserves it, and it would enjoy it. You look at one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest things that come into this town has been the workout place that came in, Gold's Gym. This town went crazy with exercise to have its own workout club right in town. Now you put a track facility and new turf fields in town, and I just know that the town's going to go exercise crazy. It'd be wonderful.
I have 3 more questions, maybe 4,
Sure.
and we've got like just a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Which upgrade of expansion of the school fields is your first priority?
Soccer, football.
What do you think the cost of the school fields will be?
The cost that I've heard, the numbers that I've heard thrown around, now I've been involved in this for about 7 years, is going to be about $2.8 million, but those numbers did not include the fields that have been proposed now behind Clyde Brown, as well as those numbers. That number doesn't include anything that would be done over on the Cassidy Farm. So
For the school itself, it would be
for the school
2.8.
itself, about $2.8 million. Moving the baseball field and rearranging the football field and bringing in the track would be about $2.8 million.
And why soccer?
Right now, we don't plan a regulation-sized soccer field. It's too narrow and it's too short. And the drainage slope that you have to put for grass, when you go from the hash marks out, the soccer team's playing downhill to out of bounds, and a lot of times the ball just rolls right out of bounds because of the heavy slope. So,
is there anything else that we need to know about the plans for the school fields?
Other than the fact that it would be the most exciting facility that this community has ever seen come into it since obviously our brand new library, which is gorgeous as well.
It is.
They will embrace this. They will enjoy this. They will benefit from this in ways that right now are tough to imagine. But when you've visited some of the area facilities and you hear and see the stories of what they've been able to generate for their town, not only from within their town, but from resources from the outside coming in, it would be absolutely, the merchants would love it. It would bring all kinds of more foot traffic and car traffic into our town for us to have a first-class facility like that.
Now, I just thought of one more question,
Sure.
and it wasn't on my list.
Okay?
You mentioned about other departments being able to use it other than the school. Will they have to rent that from the school, or are there any bylaws with the school that says that you have to pay or you have to get permission?
Well, the interesting word in all that you're asking me right now is the schools. We will not have control of that facility. That's the biggest thing that I want people to understand is Chuck Grant, the athletic director, Millis High School, middle school, does not want control of this facility. There will be a central command that we will go through, just like everybody else. We will submit our schedule. We will be scheduled. Now, granted, we'll be given some priority based on the hours and the schedule that you have to play games in our league. But other than that, we will schedule our practices for that facility through the same central command as everybody else.
Will it be through the school committee, or will there be a separate committee in itself?
I think there'll be a separate manager, facility manager in and of itself that you will call in to schedule for. And in terms of what will that usage be, I'm sure that'll be a fluctuating pay scale depending on whether you're a community team, a youth team, an adult team, or an outside team coming into our town.
Well, you've given us a lot of input regarding the proposal. You certainly enlightened me, and I thank you for your time and the input. And you've clearly made a statement of the impact it'll make for the schools.
Yeah, we couldn't be happier and more excited for this to possibly come into this town. It would be the greatest thing.
My next guest is going to be Andrea Wagner, a member of the Board of Selectmen and the Field Advisory Committee. It's very nice to have you here.
Thank you, Joyce, for having me.
We heard earlier from Chuck Adelberger. He discussed how his firm worked with the town on the project. What were some of the goals or priorities of the advisory committee for this undertaking?
Well, the Fields Advisory Committee is something that came about from a previous fields committee that determined that the inventory of fields in the town was not quite enough to meet the demand. So the Board of Selectmen decided to ask the town for funds to hire CDM Smith to do an inventory and a feasibility study to identify where in town fields could be added or what could be done to improve current fields, and to look at, for any of the new locations, what kind of restrictions might be on the land, as well as come up with some type of price or, cost to do that.
Who originally precipitated the outreach to you or to the town as far as the fields? Was it parents? Was it school committee? Was it the athletic director? I mean, how did this get revisited?
I think it was a number of people. We knew that the recreation department was expanding their programs. They run soccer and they run flag football in the fall, and they were having trouble scheduling. The Bays Soccer, which is the town, I guess I'd call it a regional soccer organization that has Millis players in it, was having trouble scheduling their practices on different fields. And of course the schools we knew had issues with their field. They didn't have a track. So I think it was just a number of different people consistently going and making comments and complaints that got us to kind of pull together and see what needed to be done.
There was I understand there was a town survey conducted, and as part of the field study, what were some of the most striking results from that?
There was a town survey, and it went out on the internet. I think you could pick it up in different places around town, and the results went back to CDM Smith, who I know incorporated it into their overall recommendations and plan. So I'm not sure what technically would be the most overwhelming, but to me, I was very surprised to see how many people were very concerned about the issue of the track and having space to take their dogs and do walks. I think that what I found was there was definitely feedback regarding, the use of the fields and the lack of space and things like that, but not to the point where they wanted to exclude the walking and the other open space that we do have, particularly over at Oak Grove.
How are those responses incorporated into the design concept that's being proposed?
That was something that we wanted to definitely be a big part of that design concept, and of course it's CDM Smith that's coming up with the design concept, but they did take that information and they presented it in different ways based upon the people, the community's feedback, and their design incorporates a lot of those responses. I can't be very specific on how.
How many people are on the advisory committee, and what are the ages, would you say, age range on this advisory committee?
How many people are on the advisory committee? I believe there's 5 voting members. We have Mr. Aspinwall, who is not a voting member, and we have an administrative person, so there are 5. The ages, I'm 20. And
I'm 39.
Okay, good. And I think that
I guess my question would be more:
what's it made up of? Maybe?
Yeah, maybe what's it made up of? And is the committee all parents of school-age kids, or are there any seniors on it, or any people who don't have children?
Well, we have Mr. Jim McKay, who works with the DPW. His children are out of the Millis schools. We have Rich Nichols, who has younger children who are kind of coming up and would be using fields. There's Sean Doherty, who represents the school committee. His children are school age, anywhere from, he might have an elementary school student up to the high school. I have children in the high school and the middle school. That was for...
That's fine.
I'm
Just
sorry,
trying to
who
get
am I
an
missing?
idea. I don't know.
But we tried to and the Oak Grove Farm Commission has a member right now. That spot needs to be filled by a commission member, but that was also mostly focused on Oak Grove Farm, not children age.
Okay. At the town meeting, voters will be asked to approve money for the town fields improvements. How much money do you think that will be? We heard from Chuck Grant earlier that he felt that the high school was going to run about $2.8 million. Have you any idea? Is it going to be double that? Is it going to be, 5, 7?
First, I don't know that the Maytown meeting is going to be a request for money for the fields. I don't know that we're going to be ready yet.
Oh, that's okay.
One of the things that the Fields Advisory Committee and of course the selectmen have asked CDM Smith to do is come up with a figure for, the high school aspect of it and the other portions of the proposal. And we haven't received that yet. I believe that's scheduled to be presented to the Fields Advisory Committee on Thursday night, tomorrow night. So we don't know what the number is. And if he said what did he say, 2
He thought about $2.8 million for the schools.
And I don't know if he's talking about just for the football, track, soccer, or if he's including the
I think he said the whole project.
Diamond. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what he thought. But once again, I'm not holding you to that. Hopefully,
Okay.
Once this moves along, you'll have a better. The town will have a better understanding of what the actual cost is. Now,
and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do think that I'm hoping that when we get those costs, they will be broken out by kind of different
areas.
There's one field that's they've suggested behind the Clyde Brown to be a turf field. Hopefully, we'll get a number for that, then to see what the high school number comes in at, plus some of the proposals over at Oak Grove Farm, and see where, see what we can do when we can.
Now, I know that we're asking the taxpayer that it'll be something on our, for the taxpayers to pay, but have grants or any other aspects of paying for this been visited?
We're consistently looking for grants or other opportunities or other funds, funding sources, whether it would be a corporate sponsor, I don't know. We would certainly be interested in any of that. As far as I know, there aren't presently any grants that could be applied for, but you never know. It's something that you always have to keep checking and looking into, and if anybody has any knowledge of anything coming up or that they've heard of, we would certainly be interested in that, because for whatever we do, any funding source that's outside of just strictly asking taxpayers to contribute is something that we're going to pursue very strongly.
I guess my next question would be as far as improvements made or the plan to do this proposal. I guess the improvements or the changes that you want to make, is it an all or nothing, or is the committee willing to do, if say the town says, geez, yeah, let's do the school, but let's not do this, or let's do this or not do that. Is this committee looking to do everything, or are you willing to do it in stages?
There's been no decision on that, and I think that in a perfect world with unlimited funding, we'd probably say, hey, if everybody's on board, let's do it all. I don't know that that's going to be possible, and then from there, we'd have to determine where the priorities are. I think we've seen a lot of comments regarding the priority for the school field, that football, soccer, track. But there's been no decision made. And again, not knowing what the price tag is, certainly doing it in segments or stages, or maybe doing one part of the proposal and not the rest, is certainly an option.
It is an option.
Yes.
So you're not looking to do, it's not going to be an all or nothing as far as, that's good. That's good to know.
I mean, I think that we would have to come to that decision, determination, and it may be something the committee says, let's do all of it, but no, that's not.
That's not the plan.
That's not the plan, right?
Okay, that's good to know. So with town meeting just around the corner, what are the next steps?
Well, the next step again is to receive hopefully what I think might be a complete report to the Fields Advisory Committee. That would then get presented to the selectmen, and if there is anything to go on the May town warrant, the selectmen would decide to put it on. But right now, I don't think we're quite there yet.
How long has the committee been? How long has this been going on? I ask only because I'm not as involved with the, I don't know. And there may be other people who don't know how long this has been going on. And
there was a preliminary Fields Advisory Committee, or Fields Committee, to look at the issue initially before we hired the consultant. And that started in about the fall of 2012.
Oh.
Then last year, you may recall, there was a request to do a field out here on the memorial.
Yes.
And at that point, they decided, the Board of Selectmen decided to say, let's get a consultant in here to look at everything and give us the information we need. And that's been at least since November.
Okay.
So, and that's a different Fields Advisory Committee, but the first one did identify the need for, centralized scheduling and centralized maintenance, so that when the fields are either improved or rebuilt, we have a way of handling them.
If people have questions, who do they contact, or how do they get more information?
They can certainly call the Selectman's office.
Okay. Well, I thank you. You've been very informative. I hope I haven't put you too much on the hot seat.
Not at all.
And I hope that the Millis residents have gained quite a bit of information from this program and a better understanding of the proposal. So I thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next Millis After Dark.